everybody. This is the webinar on Is Your Agribusiness Ready for Tax Season? And before we jump into things, I just have a couple of slides here, Akiptan, to go over. I know a lot of you are continued attenders of our webinars, and some of you are new, so I want to go ahead and do some level setting of who we are and what we do. You can find more about us on our website here at akiptan.org. Um, I'm Dawn LeBeau. I'm the Senior Program Officer here at Akiptan, and we help to lead these informational webinars around everything agriculture so that you have the tools and knowledge to help support your ag operation. Our mission here at Akiptan is to transform native agriculture and food economies by delivering creative capital, leading paradigm changes, and enhancing producer prosperity across Indian country. Akiptan is the Lakota word for working together in a cooperative effort, and this is reflective in our lending philosophy. We offer patient relationship-based capital, and while CDFIs are like banks in the sense that we provide loans, you cannot deposit money. We're different than banks because we provide technical assistance, which is also called TA, and this comes in the form of business and goal planning, succession planning, financial literacy training, and any other resources that our producers need to help their operation. There are laws that we have to follow, and we are unregulated, so this is what allows us to be flexible and innovative in the style of lending that we offer. Since inception of 2019, we have reached 29 tribal nations. We have dispersed 40 million in loan capital and have completed 567 loans. So hats off to our loan team for that hard work. Really happy to be able to serve producers across Indian country. Okay. A quick overview of our products and services. We offer 4 different products and services, and they're all designed to increase the agriculture economy across Indian country. And we have our youth loan, our general loan, our operating loan and line of credit, as well as our land mortgage and down payment assistance product as well. To be eligible for our products and services, you simply must be involved in the native ag field, and it could be anything on the food chain from initial production to retail. Activities can include, but they're not limited to farming, ranching, fishing, timber, and retail. And then this is my last slide here before I pass it over to Rob. We have our 2 different repayment style options, and this is what makes us unique. We have our traditional style, and it's more what you would see at a typical lending institution. And then we have our patient interest only capital style model, where it's lower interest rates, longer terms, and those can be found on our website, and we would be happy to go over any questions that you may have about this. You can start by inquiring with our intake form on our website. But thanks for hearing that piece of our presentation here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to Rob here.
All right. Well, thank you, Dawn. Appreciate that. Let me get my stuff pulled up here real quick. And all right, Dawn, am I coming through okay?
Yep, looks good on my
Okay,
side.
good, good. Get everything arranged here so that we're sometimes I compare this, when you got this all laid out, it sometimes look like NASA here, but anyhow, well, folks, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on board to visit with us this afternoon. Got a very important topic here. Now, I'm Rob Holcomb. I'm an extension educator in ag business management. I work for the University of Minnesota. I've been an enrolled agent for over 20 years, which is a designation through Internal Revenue Service. I also serve as the tax school director for the University of Minnesota. So a lot of my work is really heavy on the tax side of things. So with that, let's go ahead and get started here. Our topic today is talking about, is our agribusiness ready for tax season? And primarily what we're going to be doing with this topic is we're after the first of the year. The day that we're recording this is it's Monday the 5th of December. No, excuse me. It's the 5th of January today that we're recording this. And tax appointments are going to be happening really soon. All right. And it's really important to have all the right stuff when you go to the tax professional in order to get that information filed with that. So, folks, here is my contact information. My contact information here. I'm coming to you today from my office in Marshall, Minnesota. I'm located in the southwestern part of the state, and I will say this: if follow-up questions are perfectly okay. In fact, they're welcome. The one suggestion that I would have, even before the webinar started, Dawn and I were talking about, I've got a fairly robust travel schedule coming up for the next few weeks. If you do have a question, probably the best way to get a hold of me is via the email. All right. Otherwise, we probably will end up initiating phone tag because I'm probably out of the office more the rest of this month than what I'm going to be in. So with that, and I'll have that up here again as well as there. Now, this is the only disclaimer that I'm going to put up for the entire program. I encourage everyone, be a good user, be a good consumer of professional services, meaning that I'm not going to disparage any of the over-the-shelf tax software that you can purchase at Walmart or Costco or Sam's Club. There's a lot of good products out there, but unless you have a thorough understanding of the tax laws, and especially this year, we had this big piece of legislation that was passed, signed into law on the 4th of July. And folks, I'm a trained professional, and I still am not completely sure that we understand all the ramifications of this new tax legislation. So things are going to be particularly complicated this year. I really encourage everybody to use professional services. I often think that farmers that do their own taxes are doing themselves a serious disservice because you're probably missing something. Yes, there's interviews that these software programs do, but they don't ask all the right questions, right? And that's probably the best advice I can give you of anything we're going to talk about here today. Be a good consumer of professional services. The three sources that I'm really pulling from for the program today is Land Grant University Tax Education Foundation. University of Minnesota happens to be part of that. That's an organization that's made up of 30 land grant universities from across the country, and we exist to put out tax materials for tax professionals. And I happen to be involved with that organization. Internal Revenue Service. That's a I'm pulling some material from the IRS website. And the third site that I would encourage you to maybe check out is the ruraltax.org. Now, I also happen to participate with that ruraltax.org site. That is populated by fact sheets written by members of the National Extension Income Tax Education Committee, which I happen to be part of. It's hosted at Utah State. The website is, and it's loaded with free access fact sheets. All right, so I'd encourage you to go ahead and check that out. That's a good resource, and furthermore, it's a free resource. All right, the in order to have a discussion about what we need to do for getting ready for our tax appointments, a lot of this is going to be centered around records. All right, so we're going to start off talking a little bit about records, the different types of records that we should be keeping, and also I'm going to be getting a little more detail. I got a few slides to talk about records. So as far as records go, there's different types of records that you're going to have to have. All right, as far as your gross receipts and expenses, you need to have some kind of a record system set up. Whether it's a hand kept record book or whether it's software. And most folks are probably gravitating towards the software. And I encourage folks, if you got the ability to do it with software, I certainly suggest doing it that way, because the hand kept record book, it's easy, it's cheap, but then you got to sit there with an adding machine and you got to add everything up. It's much more prone to error than what the computer's going to be able to do. The computer's going to help you with that addition and everything. Now, some farms are going to want to maintain inventory records, just simply the amount of commodity that you have on hand, or if you're a livestock producer, and I know uh, farmers that have attended these workshops in the past are heavy on the livestock side, you're probably going to want to keep an ending inventory of, all right, if I'm a cow calf producer, all right, how many cows do I have on hand January 1? How many bulls? Am I holding back any heifers to put into the breeding herd down the road? I mean, those are all inventory records. All right. And payroll, if you're paying somebody to work for you and you're giving them a W-2, we definitely need to be looking at those payroll records. Those need to be incorporated in with the in with those ass in with the records itself. Now, on the record keeping side of things, all right, we really break three things down. Now, these are for the most part balance sheet issues, but I think it's important to be able to incorporate that in. This isn't necessarily going to be your income and expense accounting records, but you do want to have a listing of, as of January 1, what did you have for assets? I mean, what were your total farm assets that you had January 1? Listing those items out, and also listing a market value for each of those items. You need to also, on January 1, have a list of liabilities. All right. Who did you owe money to on January 1? And then simply the equity is taking the assets minus those liabilities. All right, to come up with that. Now, that is not necessary per se for doing the tax return unless you happen to be involved with a business entity, right? If you happen to be involved in a business entity, say like an S corporation or a LLC, or maybe even a general partnership, if asset levels are over a certain amount, you have to fill out a balance sheet on the tax return. All right. So some farmers need to have that balance sheet information ready when they go in to see the accountant. All right. So that's really critical, particularly for those larger operations, but especially if you're involved in a business entity where we've got to do a balance sheet as part of the tax return. All right. Now, let's get back. Let's backtrack a little bit and talk a little bit about records, on the records, of the importance of records. Now, one thing that I have been preaching folks for over 30 years, yes, 30 years, is when you're doing a set of books, when you're keeping your farm records, whether it's record book, whether it's accounting software, you want to be doing a bank reconciliation every month. Now, all that means is that we're comparing your farm records to what cleared on the bank statement. All right. And what that ensures us of is that ensures us that we've got all the cash that went through the bank account accounted for in your farm records. All right. Now, folks say, well, why is that important? Well, it's a big error check for accuracy. Now, and folks, over the years, I have seen massive errors that were caught. I recall one time at a previous job that I had. Our standard policy was whenever we had a new client walk in the door, we would do bank reconciliations for the previous year just to make sure everything was right. we had one fellow that came in the door, and he had sold close to $100,000 worth of feeder cattle. And what he had done, what happened is he reported that in his records twice by accident. All right. But without doing a bank reconciliation, if we wouldn't have caught it, he would have reported twice as much income for those cattle sales of what he actually happened. So it's a uh, big way to error check. All right, and it's something that we're not going to get into the fundamentals of that in today's webinar, but that is so important. Once I've had people start that, they never go back. All right, because they start to catch errors. Now, as far as those record keeping best practices, the beyond the computer records, what you want to do is you want to keep your receipts for both your income and expenses. Now, what I really like to see producers do, folks, you go to Walmart and you can buy one of those. It looks like an accordion envelope, and it's got essentially a slot for every month. Just file stuff in there as it happens. All right. If you sell some cattle, or you sell some corn, or you sell some sheep, uh, and you get the sales ticket and everything, just shove it into the month that it happened. All right. So you've got all that stuff to fall back on. All right. Canceled checks are not necessarily good to verify an expense. You still need to have that receipt. All right. So if you bought supplies at the co-op, all right, you would have been provided a receipt. That receipt goes into that accordion envelope. I mean, you sort that stuff, just if it was a February transaction, you shove it into the February slot. All right. And that way you keep everything there. So, but that's part of the keeping everything organized. Now, the other thing that I encourage folks to do is record keeping is something that should be done on a regular basis. Do not wait until uh, the night before the tax appointment to put together the 12 months worth of records. All right, that is not a good practice. All right, that is going to be so prone to error. It's not funny. I'll draw an example here. I had a when I first came to the university, I was working for the Farm Management Association, and I had this person that was always postponing the appointments until the last possible minute, and they would come in. Usually, we do fall tax planning, and they would come in on New Year's Eve, and you could tell he came in with a computer report, and I could see on the report that he printed it off at 2:45 in the morning. And did I expect it to be free of errors? Absolutely not. I mean, it was thrown together at the last minute. So, report, record stuff as it happens as the year goes along. Reconcile that stuff month by month. And what that does is that is going to show discrepancies. If you got a cash discrepancy, you just need to find it. All right. As an example, earlier this morning, I'm treasurer for our all of our ag agents for the University of Minnesota. We have an association. I'm the treasurer, and I had to update the checkbook earlier this morning uh, for upcoming reporting. And I was I compared I did a bank recon, and lo and behold, I found myself I was $600 off. Right, I was missing some transactions in the middle of December that I thought were entered in there, and that's how I would have caught it. So I caught several errors this morning by doing that reconciliation, and it's corrected, it's backed up, it's fixed, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So, but you also want to be, if you're using accounting software, you probably want to use that most up-to-date software that you can get your hands on. I don't encourage folks to don't use something that's 5 years old that's no longer supported by the maker, because every once in a while something happens where you need that help to restore data or something, especially if you've got a full year's worth of records out there and something happens to your computer crashes, and you might need some help from the software vendor in order to restore that. If you're using an old, out-of-date software program, they're not going to help you. All right, so it's important to use an up-to-date version of software that we have there. So, components of a farm record system. Now, here's what you should have. All right, and this is stuff that you need to take to the tax professional when you have your appointment. Your report ought to have a section for farm income, a section for farm expenses. You also ought to have a section for capital assets bought and sold. All right, and here's the reason why. I know many folks on here are probably going to be livestock producers. All right. If you sell breeding stock, folks, does not get reported on Schedule F. It's a capital asset. It gets reported in a different spot. It gets a different tax rate. We also don't pay self-employment tax on those sales. All right. So it's really important to be able to carve out, report those breeding stock sales in the proper spot. They're going to get reported in that capital assets purchased and sold. I'm a big fan of reporting all the money borrowed and debt paid, because we have to do that in order to keep the cash balanced in the system. And I also encourage folks to include those personal family living items. All right. We have a saying with our association here in Minnesota: if it's not written down, it didn't exist. So you can't know what you spent unless you do report it. All right. So I encourage you to do that, and also reconcile those bank statements. Now, the chart of accounts on the records program is really, really fundamental. You probably want to work with your accountant to finalize that, because the chart of accounts that's kind of the foundation of your reports. What it is, it's how you're going to categorize all of your transactions. All right. And if you've got a standard chart of accounts at the beginning of the year, you're going to get consistent reporting as the year goes on. Now some of this is kind of small, but what it's going to do is it's going to give you an idea. Now, this is a report from a program that we use here in Minnesota called PC Mars. It's a farm specific software program for farming. And the main thing that I like about this is that it's got a column for units and it's got a column for weights. So I can document, if I'm selling livestock, I can document the number of head. I can also document how heavy they were. All right. If I'm just selling grain, I can document the units as bushels. All right. So I get to do some quantities, and the program is set up to where it's going to sub total those items per code number. And you'll see here that I've got individual code numbers set up for corn, beans, sugar beets, uh, patronage dividends from co-ops, and even had some sealed corn that was on that report. Same thing on the expense side. I've got different categories here. I've got seed, crop chemicals, crop marketing, livestock supply. All of those transactions are sorted by the category. So it makes it real easy at the end of the year to come up with the reporting that your tax preparer is going to need in order to report that on the tax return. All right. Uh, Records are really, really important. Now, what do we bring along to the tax appointment? All right, let's get down to what we need to talk about here. All right. The first thing is you want to look at bringing along Social Security numbers and possibly ITINs. Now, what an ITIN is, an ITIN is a identification number that's used if you've been a victim of identity theft. All right. Otherwise, Social Security number is going to be what you need to take along. The thing you need to watch out for, folks, is that a lot of your prior year's tax returns, sometimes, depending on how the practitioner has the software set up, it might print the Social Security number on the return. Sometimes it's masked. All right. So make sure that you bring Social Security numbers along to the appointment. You don't necessarily have to have the original, but just make sure that you at least got that thing written down. Also, the full names exactly as they appear on the Social Security card. All right. So, that's because that's important. You might have somebody that's William somebody, but they go by Bill. All right. Just as an example. So, you need to make sure that you've got the name written down as it appears on that Social Security document. Also, doesn't hurt to have that government issued photo ID, depending on the software and the state that you're in. I know when I file a return here in Minnesota, I have to put uh, driver's license information in for the client before I'm going to be allowed to e-file their return. Right. And so show up, have your driver's license with you or some government ID, because more times than not, for identity theft purposes, your tax preparer is going to need that information for that. And that IP pin, if you've had identity theft and you've got an IP pin issued to you, make sure that you bring that along as well. All right. As far as banking records go, you also want to bring the checkbook along so that you've got the bank routing and account numbers. Because IRS this last year, the directive came out that it is no longer accepting checks. It's also uh, IRS is not accepting checks anymore. IRS is not issuing checks anymore. Everything needs to be done electronically. So your tax professional is going to have to put routing and account numbers into the software, because if you've got a refund coming, it's going to come as a direct deposit, and we need to get those checking account numbers in there to make sure that matches up, because you don't want that going to someplace else. Prior year returns. All right, so we're getting ready to file the 2025 returns. Especially if you're going to a new preparer, bring along the 23 and 24 returns, copies of them. All right. Make sure that you have copies of those. That is not so necessary if you're going back to the same preparer that you've gone to for year after year after year. All right. Also, the AGI, adjusted gross income, that's a number that comes off the tax return. If you're going to the same preparer as you did the last couple of years, they're going to have that. All right. But if you're going to a new person, you're going to be able to get that number off last year's tax return. All right. Other things. All right. Dependent information. All right. If you've got for any dependents, for any children that you may have that you're claiming on the return. All right. If you have kids going to daycare, make sure that you've got all the daycare information, because there's reporting that can be that is done. It's to your advantage to report those daycare records for credits. And but what you have to do is you have to have the name of the daycare provider, and you also have to have a tax ID number. The daycare provider should issue that to you before the end of January. Also, if we don't like to think about this, but if there's a divorce involved and we've got kids from one of the parents is remarried, and the kids might be living with with a parent, uh, one of the two parents from the divorce are going to get to claim the kids. All right. If the kids are living with a non-custodial parent, there's an 8332 that has to be filed, which allows that non-custodial parent to claim that child as a dependent on their return. So that's probably a conversation that they need to have when uh, when they get to the appointment. Also, any income records, if you have a dependent that doesn't qualify for a child tax credit, in other words, if you got somebody over 17 or over that's living at home, but you're providing over half their support, you still are entitled to a $500 credit that you get to claim for that individual, but you need to know how much money that they made, because you need to be able to show that you provided over half their support. All right, and that's something that probably need to do a little more follow up with the practitioner if that's happening. The only time that we need to worry about that is if you got somebody that's age 17 or older that's still living at home, and you're providing over half their support. And we need to determine whether they're a dependent or not. Okay. Uh, the other thing that we need to bring along here is records of income from employment and contracts. Now, folks, these are largely going to be information returns. All right. And I'm going to show you several of these uh, examples of what these forms are going to look like. Now, the ones that we're going to look at here first are a W-2. Now, W-2 is if you got a job and you're getting paid wages. All right, the W-2 is where wages get reported that and you provided a W-2. 1099s, there's a variety of 1099s that we're going to talk about here today, but if you're doing freelance or contract or independent contractor work, you're going to get a 1099 NEC that stands for non-employee compensation. And you're going to want to bring those along to the appointment. A 1099K is if you're doing online transactions, like if you're an online vendor, say if you were a sub vendor for like Amazon or something like that, you might be getting a 1099K in that regard. That's a little less common amongst agriculture, but in the slides I've got, here's what if you look up a W-2 on the IRS website, here's what the W-2 is going to look like. And it's going to have, get my laser going here. But it's got a section for the employer's information, the employee's information, and then the income information is going to be located over here. And if there's state information, if you have a state income tax in your individual state, that state information is going to be located at the bottom of the W-2. Right. But if you get a W-2, if you got employment and you're getting a W-2, make sure you bring along that W-2 to the tax appointment. The 1099 NEC, this is going to be if you're in like an independent contractor, say for instance, for example, you were doing some machine work for a neighbor, for instance, and you were paid over $600, they're going to issue you a 1099 NEC. All right. And what that 1099 does is it's going to have your tax ID number or your social security number on here with your name and address. And that 1099 gets reported in the IRS system. Well, when you file your return, the IRS computer tries to match up and see whether you reported that money when you file your actual tax return. Now, furthermore, what I look at when I'm doing a return is I'm going to lay all these 1099s and everything out on the desk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this 1099 NEC. All right, if you got money reported as contract income, I'm going to then go over to your records and I'm going to see, all right, do you have these records accounted for in there? And if you do, then I'm going to feel better about it. All right, if I find a 1099 here and there's no semblance of record at all in the records, we're probably going to have a conversation with that because there's if that's wrong, there's probably some other stuff wrong, and that's going to make me nervous. All right. Again, the 1099K, this is going to be like if you're doing, third-party payment networks. A lot of this is going to be, online transactions. Like if you're doing eBay or Venmo or PayPal or, another one that I've seen here is, somebody happens to be they're a sales arm for Amazon. They're a supplier for Amazon or something like that. That's something that's going to get issued if you're doing online transactions, mostly for retail type of things. So you're probably not going to see that too much in the farm side of things. Now, for 1099s, one thing that you will notice is that a lot of the businesses that are going to issue 1099s may offer a substitute 1099. And in fact, it'll say that at the top. It'll say substitute 1099. And what it will do is it has to contain all the same information that the IRS form contains. But many companies will do that substitute 1099, and it's perfectly okay. But when you're opening all your mail and everything, you're looking for, save anything that has a 1099 on it when it comes in the mail. Anything that says substitute 1099, make sure that you save that as well. All right, because they're essentially the same thing as the 1099. It just may be a full sheet of paper and it just has the line numbers down the left-hand side with the dollar amounts there. So and the requirements there that we're not too interested in the requirements or anything there. There's also 1099s for that you might see for digital assets and self-employment income along those lines. So like if you have some digital asset transactions, that's going to be a 1099 DA for digital asset. That would be like if you sold some cryptocurrency or something along those lines. Not real common, but just notice that. Remember, folks, anytime there's a 1099 on a form, don't throw it away. All right, don't throw it away. Put it in the envelope, put it in the bag or whatever that you're taking to the accountant. Let them sort that out. Also, if you made estimated payments during the course of the year, all right, which if you were making estimated payments, you'd have that 1040-ES for those are the vouchers for making estimated tax payments that would have been printed off with your last year's tax return. Make sh make sure that you bring those along, especially write down, the dates that you made any of those estimated payments. All right. The accountant's going to want that as well. So, uh, as far as the business access assets and everything, we've already talked about this to a certain degree, but uh, anything that supports your records needs to be, you need to account for. All right, so receipts and going back again to what I said earlier, my favorite method of keeping track of receipts and everything is get one of those accordion envelopes at Walmart or one of the one of the one any retail store is that has an office supply section is going to have that. Get the accordion envelope that has a pocket for every month. All right, transactions from January get into the January envelope or the January section, and just sort that stuff out so that you got all that stuff as backup. Also, if you're claiming expenses for vehicles, all right, it's a good idea. Make sure that you got your mileage logs and all that because if you're claiming mileage on your business vehicles, you want to make sure that you got your mileage logs in there and everything. Make sure that you bring that along. If you have an office in the home and you're claiming an office in the home deduction. All right, and this is a space that's used exclusively for the business. All right, if you've got that going on, measure the space, write that down on a sheet of paper, bring that to the accountant as well. All right, and any assets that were purchased or sold, make sure that you've got those uh, included in the records. All right, because if you sold some cows, you're going to have a sales ticket from whoever bought them, whoever bought them. Uh, if you bought a piece of equipment, you're going to have a purchase receipt that make sure that you got that to back up that stuff in your records. Now, any of these other 1099s that might show up, just put those in the stack and bring those along to the tax appointment. If you're earning interest or dividend income like at the bank or something, all right, you're going to get a 1099 INT or a 1099 DIV. And again, anytime that you get anything that has a 1099 on it, put it in the envelope. It goes to the tax appointment. Stock and property sales. Now that's a 1099-B, which is a brokerage statement, or a 1099-S, which is for a land sale. All right. If you have either one of those, make sure you throw those in. If you received any unemployment benefits, you're going to receive a 1099-G on those. Yeah, again, make sure you get those in there. Gambling and lottery winnings, that's going to be reported on a W-2G. All right. So anything anything with a 1099 on it gets put it in the pile, take it to the accountant. Now, going to spend a little bit more time on the co-op patronage because many producers are going to do business with a cooperative sometime during the course of the year, and if you're a member of the cooperative, you're going to get a 1099 PATR, which is for 1099 patronage, and that patronage is going to be based on the amount of business that you did with the co-op during the course of the year. Now, there's a lot of different types of patronage that's going to get reported on the 1099. Might be anything from patronage to per unit retains. There's a number of different types of distributions that get reported on the 1099. You just want to make sure that you take that 1099 along with the all the other material. All right. That's, we're not going to, we could spend an hour trying to decipher all of the 1099 PATR stuff. And we're not going to have time to go through all that. Now, this is the IRS
Hey, Rob,
form. Yes. Hmm.
there's a question before
Okay.
we get
Yes.
too ahead. Okay,
Sure.
well, there's two now, but the first one is uh, the 1099-G. Is this
Hmm.
relative to the grant awarded via tribes or federal funded awards?
Well, a 1099-G is going to be coming from anything that is coming from the government. So if it was a granted if it was a grant that was issued from the federal government, it's going to come, the reporting on that is going to be on a 1099-G. And to address that any further, I'd probably want to have an individual conversation with the individual. But the 1099-G is anything that's coming from the government on the federal side. All right, not necessarily the state. The state has their own, if you have money that comes from the state, that's coming from a state 1099. All right. Did I answer that for him, Don, or do we need to dive in that a little more?
I think that's good for now. Like you said,
Okay.
if they want to follow up with you on the side, we do have his email and his phone number at the end of
Sure.
here where
Okay.
you guys can deep dive into that a little bit more.
Sure.
Question number two is what does a person do if they have been operating for many years and have never filed because they are operating on tribal trust land and are enrolled, or even just a regular producer who hasn't filed in years or ever? What are the steps that you would take as a tax practitioner if they showed up at your office?
Well, initially, and let's just address this tribal trust land issue. Now, I am first of all, I am not an expert on, there is an extremely narrow window on the federal side where if you're an enrolled member and you're operating on tribal trust land and your tribe has a treaty with the federal government that is excluding income, folks, that is very, very uncommon. All right. I know here in Minnesota we've got all the different bands of Ojibwe, and we've also got the upper and lower Sioux that are real close to where I live here in Southwest Minnesota. We do not. There is not a solitary tribe in Minnesota that has that exemption. All right. Now, the state gives everybody a break in Minnesota. If you're a tribal member and you have money derived off tribal lands and you're an enrolled member, that money gets excluded from the state return. But federally, it's all taxable income. If you've got an individual that hasn't filed before, best thing to do is just to start up. Do not, first of all, do not try to go back and file back to the beginning of time. Just what I would do is I would just focus on filing that current year return, and I always try to steer people in the direction of let's move the client in the direction of compliance. All right. So get everything together for this year, get the 2025 return filed, make sure it's correct. And you might get some inquiries for some prior years, potentially, especially if they had 1099s that were issued to them. But initially, what I would do is I just go ahead and get that 2025 return filed and make sure that one's correct.
Okay, thanks, Rob. I think that covered both questions. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. So on the 1099, you're coming back to the 1099 patronage. Now, because folks, there's a million boxes. There's not a million boxes, but there's a lot of boxes on here, and of which, some of these boxes are taxable, some of them might be taxable. So uh the bottom line is if you get any correspondence from your cooperative during the year, make sure you save that. Save that just like you would a W-2 or a 1099. All right. Hang on to that paperwork that the co-op sends you. Now, one of the things that complicates things with co-op when you're dealing with co-ops is most co-ops don't operate on a calendar year. They operate on a fiscal year, which is going to be different from that calendar year. So there might be some goofy reporting going on. They might be issuing their patronage and everything maybe the middle of the summer because that happens to be the end of their fiscal year. So they might issue paperwork. They'll send the 1099s in January when all the other 1099s are going to show up, but the co-op member will receive correspondence from the co-op indicating that this reporting mechanism is going to come at a later time. Oftentimes, cooperatives are going to do a substitute 1099. I mean, very seldom have I seen 1099s coming from cooperatives that were on the IRS form. It's going to probably be a substitute form that's just going to have, it's going to have the logos and everything, but it's going to have the line numbers down the left-hand side, and with the box numbers off, right next to the line numbers. So, but I cannot emphasize enough: don't ever throw away correspondence from the co-op. All right, because that's what's going to indicate what's coming down the road, and your tax preparer will love you for saving all that stuff. All right. Now, the one thing that might come in the middle of the summer is like for instance, so this is the only one we're going to dive into a little bit deeper, but if you get a notice of a qualified equity distribution. Now, what qualified equity is, when if a co-op issues patronage, all right, typically what the co-op's going to do is the co-op is going to pay 20% of that in cash, and 80% of it gets held by the co-op, but the farmer pays tax on the whole amount. All right. So when the day comes where the co-op distributes that equity portion, well, that's money that the farmer's already paid tax on. So when that money comes, and that's not going to be reported on a 1099. They're just going to get a letter saying that, okay, this is a distribution of qualified equity, and that qualified equity is money that they've already paid tax on. So that's essentially tax-free income when they distribute that. But again, you got to save that correspondence from the co-op in order to know what that stuff is. All right. On the home deductions. All right. If you've got, if you've got a mortgage on your house or your property where you're living, you're going to get a Form 1098 on that showing the amount of mortgage interest that you paid. It's also typically going to show property taxes and as well as well, property taxes are going to be on there. There's other information, but the main thing there is going to be the interest in the property taxes. Uh, if you did any type of charitable donations, all right, you're going to get some type of contemporaneous written acknowledgement of a charitable contribution. Make sure you bring that along as well. Plus any medical and dental bills. It's always a good idea to throw that in because you just never know. I mean, in certain circumstances, with the tax law changes that occurred this last summer, it's harder and harder to itemize, but it still doesn't hurt to throw it in. All right, throw it in, bring it to the appointment. It might not do you any good, but there's a chance it might do you some good. Plus any records that you have for state and local income taxes. All right, and that's primarily going to be your property taxes. All right. So here's what a 1098 is going to look like if it's the IRS form. But again, I know when we get our mortgage statement, for the mortgage for our house where I live, it's a pro forma type of thing. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for the line numbers when I go to do the return. A couple other things. We're kind of in the short rows here on this thing, just a little bit here, folks. But education, retirement, and health savings. All right. If you've got a child that happens to be in college, all right, that child is going to receive a 1098T. Now that is a 1099 that comes from the college or university where the student is attending. And what that does is that 1098T summarizes the tuition paid and if they received any scholarships. It's got all the information that you need for uh, determining whether the student's going to get an education credit or not. All right. That's another thing. Hang on to that. All right. Now, on the 1098Ts, as I've got listed on the slide here, it's always a good idea if you got a summary of all the charges and everything, it's a good idea to get that. All right, have your student go to the registrar's office, get a printout of the account because those 1098Ts over the years have been notoriously error prone. All right. So a lot of tax practitioners are going to say, I'd like to see the paperwork that went along with this just to make sure that the numbers are right. If you've got someone in the household that has student loan interest, that's going to get reported on a 1098E. That goes on the return as well. Again, anything with a 1099, 1098, make sure you put that in the pile to bring that along. Uh, if they did retirement contributions, you're going to get a 5498 the uh, from the business that's maintaining the retirement account. All right. And if you're doing health savings accounts, there's going to be a 5498 that's going to come from the person or the business that's administering the HSA. All right. So that's another form. Make sure that you get that in there. There's a copy of the IRS 1098T, and that one very likely is very likely what you're going to get from the college. Most of the time, the colleges are going to do the IRS form. They'll populate those boxes and they'll send that out. I've seen that more so than the substitute 1098 with that. On the healthcare side of things, now there's one of three forms that you might end up seeing depending on what you're doing for health insurance. There's a 1095A, a 1095B, and a 1095C. You're usually going to have one of those, and you want to make sure that you bring those along to the appointment as well. And that's all depending on whether you're getting employer provided insurance or whether you're getting your insurance from the marketplace or not. All
Hey,
right.
Rob,
So
can I
yes,
interject right now with a
sure,
question?
sure, sure.
Okay. The question is, if I donate in cash to pay for a truckload of wood for our elders' winter to keep them warm, I paid the local wood hauler cash for the wood. Can I classify the cash payment as a contribution, donation, or goodwill? My reservation, many of our elders do not have basic infrastructure for water, electricity, etc.
The the issue with that is that let's see, I'm trying to okay. You can claim cash up to I think it's $200, and anything above that you're gonna have to have a receipt for. And I think that's going to be correct but I think you got a $200 threshold, which is not a lot. But typically for a charitable contribution, you're going to have some kind of a receipt, and it's really encouraged to have that. Now, if it's a small amount under $200, you can probably put that down. But again, going back to my earlier discussion, in order to get that, in order to take advantage of that, in a big time way, you're going to have to be able to itemize. But we're allowed to do a small amount of charitable contributions just on the 1040 this year after after the tax legislation. All right, it's kind of waffling. I mean, the best practice is to have a receipt. But if you don't have a receipt, you can go up to that $200 level. But I would still encourage you, if there's any way that you can get that receipt or acknowledgement that that happened, that's going to be the best practice.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. This is the list of things to get before your appointment. All right. So this is kind of a recap on this, folks. So I do encourage you before you go to your appointment. All right, you want to print and pack your latest set of accounting records. Now, what I would do is I would suggest printing off a copy and also bring a backup. All right, meaning that if your tax professional has a copy of the same software you're using, you can just bring them a backup. If not, save it as a PDF and bring an electronic PDF copy along. Uh, Open all the relevant mail and sort by category. Now, folks, at least open everything up. Now, I know when I was with the association, I had somebody every year that would show up with a couple Walmart sacks full of unopened mail to the appointment, and he'd open the things right in front of me. Now, we were sure we had everything, but open it before you go to see the tax professional, and open it up, sort everything out, and have put the 1099s in one slot. If you got 1098s, just kind of categorize stuff, so sort stuff into piles as best you can, and the stuff that you're just not sure about, have that in a not sure about, and let the tax professional kind of sort through that a little bit. But anything that's got a 1099 on it or a substitute 1099, make sure you save that. All right, W-2s get saved, 1098s get saved. All right, anything that looks official that's an information return, make sure that you bring that along. All right. The other thing is that personal identification and security. Make sure that you're bringing social security numbers for everybody that's going to be listed on the return, including dependents, and that banking and prior year records. I think we talked earlier, bring a couple years worth of tax returns along, unless you've got going to the same person that's been doing it for the last couple of years. All right, then you don't have to worry about that. Dependent information and care. If you had kids in daycare, make sure that you bring all the daycare information along. And if you've got kids in college or kids in some kind of post-secondary school, make sure that you bring all the education stuff along. If you got retirement contributions and everything, make sure you bring that along. And health savings account, anything to do with health insurance, make sure that you bring that along. That's going to be in the way of those 1095 forms, which is going to be the health insurance and the special notices. I don't think, folks, you can overdo it on what you're bringing to the tax professional. The tax professional would rather you bring more than what you need, rather than showing up and they give you a list of a couple dozen things that you got to go home and hunt up. All right, and and you're going to have a much better experience with that if you're able to do that. All right, folks, we'll open it up for questions here. And again, I'll put my contact information up here. Dawn, I guess, do we have any more questions or anything here?
Nope, no more questions in the chat, but you all are welcome to use the Q&A or just the regular chat if you have any.
Dawn, I thank you. This was I think it was a good timely topic to talk about here today,
Yeah,
because it's what folks are getting ready for.
yeah, definitely. We want to start the new year organized and prepared, right? So
Hmm.
we had other folks from the previous webinar ask for this information, and so
Okay.
we
All right.
listen to producers and we deliver. So here we are.
All right. All right.
Um,
And again, folks, I want to encourage you. I mean, I am traveling a lot during January, but if you got a follow-up question or something, just shoot me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
right. We do have a thank you in the chat. They really
Okay.
appreciate your time, Rob.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. I know we set aside, oh, let me pause. I see a question. Any accounting software for agriculture that you recommend, Rob?
Yes, I do. There is the program that we use for let me start again. The program that we recommend for our association members is a program out of Iowa. It's called PC Mars. It's capital P, capital C is in cat, MARS. It's a program that's been around since the 1980s, and the screenshots of the reports that I showed earlier in my presentation, those were PC Mars reports. They are it's a relatively easy program to use. It's farm specific. It is going to run you about, I got to double check. I think it's like $80 per set of books per year. All right, so you don't actually buy it. You're more or less buying you're more or less buying a royalty to use the program for your business for a year, and it's an annual charge. But that's what I would steer folks towards, because if I'm sitting down doing an analysis for a farmer, that's my preferred report. I want to have that report in hand in order to do a farm analysis.
Thanks, Rob. I don't see any further questions, but you all are welcome to continue to ask. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Rob?
Not that I can think of. You indicated you had something that you wanted to share here at the end, so you want me to stop sharing here?
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Okay.
We're just gonna go over a couple more slides on Akiptan's side here. So first of all, thank you so much, Rob. All of your information is always very helpful for everybody. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here. And you guys are welcome to ask more questions as they come to mind as I run through these last few slides from Akiptan's perspective. Just a couple programs that we want to make sure that you guys have information on. So we had just rolled out our youth initiatives, and one of them is our Okichani Scholarship. So this scholarship supports Native American high school seniors that are graduating this coming spring in 2026 and are pursuing a degree that supports the Native ag industry. Native American high school seniors pursuing a degree that will support that industry are encouraged to apply. This year, we are awarding $2,000 per 10 students, and application closes March 31st. You can scan the QR code here, but it is also on our website where students can apply. If they have any questions, they can reach out to me. My email is also on the website when you scan this QR code. The next youth initiative that we have is our Native Youth Makichani business plan contest. So students between the ages of 16 to 18 can apply. The business plan template is available on our website. So they must provide a written business plan around Native agriculture and then record a 1 to 5 minute verbal business plan video recording. This QR code is here as well. And this year, the cash prizes range from $5,000 for first place and $750 for fourth place. This closes on April 30th, not the 20th, of 2026 at 4 p.m. My email is also on here. We are providing technical assistance. So let's say they download the template and are having some hiccups throughout it. Our team here at Akiptan is ready to help them with TA. And the last youth initiative that I want to mention is our summer youth internship is getting ready to open this year. And interns between the ages of 16 to 18 are welcome to apply and gain hands-on experience working with native ag companies. It can either be remote or in Eagle Butte, here where our office is located. It's opening this coming spring. It starts in June, it ends in August of every year. Our interns get paid $18 an hour. So folks are welcome to apply. We hire one intern every summer. They learn about everything native CDFI. Okay, and then I want to name a couple of curriculums that we have on our website, and we can mail these out to you as well. This is our financial management guide for cattle ranchers. A lot of the things that Rob has gone over today are in all of these curriculums. The second one here is our Introducing Native Ag for Young Entrepreneurs, so it's more youth focused. And then we have our financial management guide for native agribusiness as well. And so these are available for operators' use. And then our booklets, the first one is around succession planning. If you are preparing your operation for the next generation or you just want to have things in order, this is a wonderful guide that was created for producers. It's on our website in a PDF form, or we can mail you one. And then our rancher record keeping book. Rob talked a lot about keeping good records. This one has an annual month by month section where you can write different things down. It's not heavily financial based, but it's everything for your operation based. So if you sold calves on this day or you bought things on that day, you can document that all in one booklet and have it all together for the end of the year so you can prepare for the success of your operation. So again, these are online, or we can mail you a copy. If you'd like a copy, put your name in the chat and I'll get a hold of you. And we often, or we always offer our feedback survey here. If you scan this code and fill out our survey within the next 5 days, we want to hear from you. We want to know what other webinars you want to learn about, what other topics are of need for your operation. Please fill this out and you have a chance to win some very cool Akiptan swag. So I'll leave this up here for a minute and then I'll put the link in the chat so you can just click on the link and then go straight to the form. Okay, and we sift through these surveys very intentionally so that way a lot of what we are offering in our annual lineup of webinars is from you as the producer. So everything you're going to see here in 2026 has been asked for from producers. Okay, and what we have coming up in the same month on the 28th from 1 to 2, or actually, I think that's 12 to 1. Most of our webinars are at lunchtime for folks to be able to use their lunch hour. But moving into 2026, this is our annual Akiptan update. We have some really exciting things that have been refreshed here at Akiptan. And so you'll want to tune in for that to hear more about our lending products, our services, and our initiatives. And then our annual cattle market outlook is happening on February 10th from 12 to 1 as well. If you've missed any of the recordings or the webinars, they're all on our website and you can watch those at your leisure. And then we have our free financial information on our website. Rob talked about the record keeping portion. We have balance sheets, cash flow sheets, projections sheets, all within the applications portion of our website. And you're welcome to use those. They're all made out for you with all the formulas so that you can keep those annual records in one place. They're in Excel, so you're able to use that to your leisure. But other than that, our newsletter is also something that we keep up to date. Once a week, we send out an e-newsletter to your inbox where you can learn about all of our wonderful lending services and our programs. You can sign up for that by scanning the QR code here, but it's also on our website as well. Okay, and with that, this is our contact information. I want to thank you all for being with us today. And once again, Rob has put his information on the screen earlier, but you can always email me if you have questions for him or myself. We're happy to answer them. And let me just double check the chat, make sure we're not missing anything. Nope, I think we're all good. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we hope that this webinar was helpful for the continued success of your operations. Please reach out if you have further questions.